I would like to open this live grabbing a taco out of my purse because we're just gonna continually get more and more unhinged. I'm dressed like this because my cat is a psychopath, right, Marceline? I'll come over here. Don't worry, I have treats, so she'll do it. So she looks like this on my shirt, right? She looks the same. She looks the same. So she is a psychopath, and today I wanted to talk about You Season 3. If you don't know about You on Netflix, what have you been doing with your life, sincerely? Probably outliving it and not binging TV shows. Just super good for you. I'm also really excited tonight, guys. For a long time, about a couple hours, I was missing the sour cream that I left in my bed, and I found it now in my bed. So we're happy to do that. All right, you guys, we're gonna get into it. So I think on my YouTube there is You Season 2. Thank you so much, Pablo, for all the likes. Always appreciate you, darling. I think on my YouTube I've reviewed Season 2 of You. I had once reviewed You Season 1, and I probably should have started there, but I don't know if I can find my You Season 1 notes. I might have to go redo them again. I can't remember if I hid them somewhere. But I think You Season 2 is on my YouTube channel if you're curious on what I had to say about all that. I think I did it with my ex now at the time, my boyfriend at the time. I have to redo Season 1 because somebody reported didn't like my little art that I do. Normally, I don't do film reviews like this. I'm actually switching. Normally, what I do is I put a lot of kind of like background B-roll video that doesn't make the cut enough to make the pages, you know, the made pages. So I put them all in there in the YouTube videos, and then I will do like an audio over them, and that's how I do my reviews. But now that I've been kind of going on this live stream journey, I do them now on a lot of live streams. And I think I might just switch my podcast to also live streaming, especially that I've been so poor I can't afford the $100, but we'll just see how it all goes. Okay, we'll just see how it all goes. See, there was an attempt to build a studio, a podcast studio, and it failed, like many of my ADHD attempts. But anyway, welcome in. We're gonna talk about You Season 3. Okay, first note, I was so mad because they had changed it to, they had said at the end of Season 1, right, that it was a daughter, okay? And I was a little excited about that. And I was thinking about this before I was going to talk about it, okay? Because I was like, well, maybe there's a reason for that. And I was like, it probably would have gotten creepy. And I realized I think the reason that they changed it to a son instead of a daughter is because I don't think that Joe would ever have left his daughter. I just don't think that he would have done it, sincerely. I just don't think he would have done it. Like, I don't think he would have left her. He would have kept her, and they needed that for the plot. But did I love it? No, you guys. And we'll see if I end up taking a bath on this live. I don't know what's going to happen. We're just going to try to get through it all as great as we can, okay? So, anyway, hated that they went with a boy, not a daughter, but they name him Henry. 40, I think 40 is his middle name, because obviously, as you know, spoiler alert, sorry, 40 dies in You Season 2, which is kind of heartbreaking because I kind of liked 40. And honestly, the name 40 is kind of growing on me for a kid. I was like, man, maybe that's not such a bad name. Or like Forte, you know what I mean? Would you name your child Forte? Sorry, sometimes you have to just suck apple juice. I hope that makes sense to you. It's not even apple juice, it's applesauce. Anyway, Joe is like, maybe it's karma that God owed us a boy because he took 40, and he's taken, I think, more male lives than female lives at this point in the game. I think he usually is, as a serial killer, most of the time killing majority males. Like, he really does hesitate when it comes to a female. And if the male has even, like, a little bit of feminine qualities, he will spare them. So that is something about Joe Goldberg. Anyway, they moved to a safe neighborhood in NorCal, which honestly makes sense. I would never raise a child in LA. That sounds like a really hard time. If you were a child raised in LA, I salute you. I salute you. Hello, welcome in, everyone. We're just going to descend into madness. We're talking about You Season 3, so feel free to pipe in. We're getting down to it. This season is heartbreaking. Absolutely. Here we go. We are absolutely unhinged. Just my You Season costume. And if you missed, I am wearing my cat shirt because I believe my cat is a psychopath like Joe Goldberg and is absolutely controlling when it comes to love. So much that I made an animation about her. So we're working on it. But anyway, guys, if you keep the likes up, keep it going. We appreciate you. But anyway, so then we do a safe neighborhood funded by blood money, as most safe neighborhoods are. And, oh no, sorry about your cat. That's kind of scary. Anyway, like, Joe has this nightmare of being peed on, and then, you know, of, like, having him cry all night, and it scares him. He hates changing diapers. He's not really meant to be a parent, you know? And to be fair for Mr. Joe, he has not ever had the success, right, to see parenthood be fulfilled for him. That doesn't happen for him, right? It's not happening. See parenthood be fulfilled for him. That doesn't happen for him, right? It's not happening. Anyway, he's reading Gatsby to the baby, which is a wild choice to read to a child. It's literally about an affair. But, you know, he's got it on the brain. Anyway, then Henry spits up on the book. Classy. Anyway, Love's mother's shaman confirmed that he was 4D reincarnated. And that's why he's doing kind of those things. And Joe is still sending his book restorations to Ellie for her to get money. So he's not abandoning every child whose parental guardian he murders or is involved in a murder of. Good for him, I suppose. He feels like the place is really messy compared to their neighbors, and there's not a lot of, like, presence in the house. Like, he's starting to feel kind of a loneliness because Love is very absorbed with motherhood, right? As one would be. And he's just not feeling suburban dad life. He's not in it. He doesn't care that his baby is in crisis. He's not in it. He's not feeling it. But he does desire an affair with the neighbor, right? Tap this screen if you've ever wanted an affair with the neighbor. My first ever crush was on my next door neighbor. Like, that wasn't a celebrity, right? Anyway, so you got the one neighbor being like, oh, you know, like, unfortunately breastfeeding doesn't prevent pregnancy. And he's like, oh, are you flirting with me? Which is a wild flirt, but also, like, who does just say that? Like, this neighbor was, like, uncharacteristically out of control a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, just who be just saying breastfeeding to their neighbors next door? You know what I mean? Like, kind of a big one. Anyway, she's a realtor to people. She's older. She's married. She was a publicist at one point, and now she's married to this tech entrepreneur. But he's never home, right? He's never home, which you would think a tech guy would be home because of the whole computer obsession. But no, it doesn't go that way. So he, you know, thought that Love's mom was coming back, all of that, and he, like, kind of makes fun of Love's baby weight, which, like, Joe, you know what I mean? Like, don't do it, honey. And Love too is, like, super skinny, so Joe's, like, wild for that, absolutely. And he's like, you know what, Beauty has no size, like, let's get to it. So he ends up finding the library, and then he also finds out about Google stalking. So he begins to stalk, obviously, the next door neighbor that he has a fixation with, because this is Joe's pattern, right? Fixates on somebody. Why does this remind me of somebody I know? And his name is Phoenix. But anyway, he finds that, you know, the one tech guy was, like, maybe, like, a lady magnet, and that she had said, too, that a baby was not for her, which is more up Joe's alley. Again, he does not like fatherhood. I hope that is clear in the very first episode. Registered loud and clear. You have, like, another older woman doing this thing with babies that people do with babies that I always find strange, where they're like, it's like a child, right? And this older woman is like, oh, I used to date a Henry. It's like, it's a baby pedo. Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, what? Why are we so weird with babies? Like, do we just not know what to say? Do we just, like, we just crash out? I don't know. I don't understand. Anyway, so the neighbor is all tender in the night, and you know, Joe's like spying on her next door because he's fixated, right? He's fixated. He's in. And he sees that she is like orgasm, right? She's woo-wooing. And that unfortunately is doing it for Joe, but it's not doing it for the baby's brain. It's not doing it for baby Henry. And Love feels his distance. She can feel him separating. Yeah, sure, I'll be friends with you, Kari. Thank you so much. But yeah, so she's mad that he's not super into her because she's in love with her. Anyway, they get a phone call, no caller ID. And it's the neighbor. And the husband looks in tech. He has a checkered past that he's trying to hide. That's what they're trying to find out. Joe wants to have a reason to rescue her, right? Joe loves to be a hero in a way. As you can see in all of the other ones, he was a hero, right? He saved Beck from Benji and like kind of her own like despair of the classes of her life. He didn't really like Love. I think at first he thought he was saving Love from her own widow despair. And then it plot twisted on him, right? But even in the next instant, Kate, he's saving her from like the cold, harsh, like he's actually giving her love that she's never had from her own father. With Bronte in the fifth one, he is, you know, he believes saving her from her own like mess, you know what I mean? Like giving her somebody to believe in. But anyway, there's no privacy that the neighbor kind of declares to Joe. She's like, there's just one broken camera by the pool, which kind of freaks me out. Like, I can't imagine being spied on by my husband who wasn't there. You know what I mean? Like, what? Excuse me? No, thank you. I don't want that life, but seems like I'm heading that direction. Anyway, Joe's like, oh, you turned off that camera on purpose. And we all know why, right? Because you're being sexy by the pool or whatever. And anyway, they slip a leash around the neck. It's getting wild. It does get a little wild this season. I would say this is probably the craziest season that happens. They like tease a little bit in 5, but it's nothing. It's nothing compared to what happens in this season. So anyway, they talk about, you know, like people are not built for marriage or secrets, and they clang wine glasses, but it breaks and it cuts her little hand, and he takes care of her because he loves that. He's also going to do something super weird. He's going to save the napkin that she bled on, right? One, listen, I understand that Joe's a psychopath. But to be loved in such a way that a man would save my blood, I don't know. It does something, right? It totally does something. Anyway, so the neighbor, she's going on about like, hey, you know, like people are happier when they're not lying to themselves. Like, you know, just admit that you want me, blah, 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 whatever. And unfortunately, you know, it kind of breaks up. And Joe kind of realizes, like, I have a family, like, I can't leave them, like, I have to be responsible as much as I want this. So he does choose good guy in the end because he's trying to be good. Which I do love every season when they start that, where he's like, I'm done with this. I'm done. I'm never going to serial kill again. I'm over it. It's over. I'm good. I'm having a good time. I'm done. And anyway, we learned about Sherry, who threw a party during COVID. You know, scandalous. She's in a 1% bubble, as most of the neighbors are in the hood. And they are like having a moment, him and Love, where they're stalking people online, kind of making fun together. And they find out that, you know, there's a daddy microdosing on ketamine, which is very, very funny. I don't know why I found that funny, just because it is true for, unfortunately, I think a good majority of daddies. And it's just like, you know, something I didn't expect to happen in this day and age. Anyway, you guys, a lot of people are doing these intermittent fasting keto, right? This is the neighborhood culture. A lot of people have an open marriage, right? Let me know if you don't know what an open marriage is. It's pretty much you are poly in a way, but you're married. Anyway, they find out that Natalie, the older woman neighbor that he's having an interest with, is a cheater too. Even though she claims to be a feminist, I don't think you can be a cheater and a feminist. Am I interested in a poly relationship? I mean, currently, right now, I cannot be, but it would depend on who. But I was doing poly for a while. Anyway, Natalie was a cheater. She's not a feminist. She stole her husband Matthew from another woman. Gasp, right? Shocking. Natalie doesn't like Sherry and thinks she's a bad person. Guys, I might have to take this off and switch to a wig. I know you're really enjoying it and that you're really sad that I'm not going to be in my ski mask anymore. But it is maybe too ungodly hot, unfortunately. I done gunked it up. But anyway, you guys. So, the authenticity scares Sherry, who's not very authentic. She's like a little influencer, okay? She's a little influencer girl. Or maybe we just wear it like a little funky hat, and when we cool down, we'll come back. Or we can wake. You can let me know what you want in the comments. I'll do whatever you guys want. Within reason. Anyway, so Love actually is like, I don't really know if I even know myself, you know, because this happens to like a lot of pregnant women. They're like, they get pregnant and then they're like, who am I without baby? What am I without mom? Who was I before mom? You know, it happens. And so she realizes that she wants to open a bakery. And she says that, well, then we find out that Natalie lies, that she hasn't had anyone, either of them, over her house. When she did have Joe over her house. Natalie. Naughty Natalie. Anyway, Joe kind of assures Love, and he's like, listen, it was a fleeting fantasy, which, you know, Joe doesn't have. He has a fixation. It's a fixation. But he's like, listen, you know, you're trying to police my mind. You can't, you know, it was just simple. It's simple. It was just in my mind. I'm sorry I had one, you know, like, and Love's like, no, I know how you are. You're obsessed with her. I know how you are because I'm the same way. Like, we are both the same. And Joe resents her for it, right? Because Joe doesn't like himself. At the end of the day, every abuser hates themselves. Hates themselves. And that's why they take it out on you. And it's awful. And we hate it. But anyway, Natalie is like, okay, Love, why don't you just sign this 3-year bakery lease and all your dreams will come true. And Love is like, okay, yeah, sure, sounds great. Like, why not sign a 3-year bakery lease? Like, what else am I going to do? It'll probably give me purpose because apparently my husband has this hidden box that has Natalie's underwear in it and the little, like, napkin with her blood, which I'm low-key obsessed with. I'm so sorry. I'm absolutely obsessed with that. Anyway, so she's going in and she's going to, unfortunately, she's going to kill Natalie, right? She's going to have to. She has to do it. Because she's very jealous. And that's my favorite thing about Love's impulses. Like, I feel like Joe really, he really takes his time with his kills. He really debates and thinks of them. And Love just kind of, like, impulsively is like, whoops, I killed him. My bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just panicked and I killed them. Which is, I don't know. It feels very feminine to me. It feels so feminine. And more of, like, I almost can forgive Love's killing more than Joe's in itself. Like, I feel like the fact that Joe's is so calculated makes it so much worse. You know what I'm saying? Just, I mean, all of it's diabolical. Obviously, the lesson is, guys, don't kill people, right? Easy. I think we can all maybe get through that. But anyway, Love is like, hey, so I killed Natalie, so we need to go to couples therapy. Love that for her. Love that she's got it. Got a priority straight. And anyway, Joe's freaking out because Love just signed a 3-year lease for a crime scene. So amazing. You know what I mean? Going really well. Hi, Quinny. Happy Friday. When they decide that they're going to bury Natalie in the woods, right? Where else do you bury a body these days? In NorCal. I mean, might have been better to toss it to the ocean, but I don't know. I don't know, friends. I don't know nothing about burying bodies. I would never kill somebody. But anyway, they're like, how is burying her in the woods safer? You know, and they like have to go do therapy. Or they ask how, the one therapist is like, how can we communicate more safely? And they're in this weird thing with therapy where they can't say the real problem, which is that Love murdered somebody, right? So they're going around it. And so they go about how, like, they don't, you know, like, and Love is like kind of, they're debating, like they're like, I don't want to use the meat grinder for her, like I use that, and it is messed up. It is like, I can't, you know what I mean? Like, I can't believe I love Sweeney Todd, and this is the first time I'm mentally digesting the meat grinder whole proportion. So anyway, Joe kind of accuses her of like codependence, and that he's emasculating him, and that she's just like not letting him be who he needs to be. Like, she kind of took the choice away by getting pregnant. Like, I think he really, really resents her for trapping him, but I also love that Love Quinn did that. I love it. Because real love will trap you. You know what I'm saying? It really will. And anyway, they talk about how, like, they never communicate healthy, and Joe's like, well, healthy communication wasn't modeled for me. Like, and in his defense, true. And I guess I learned in the books that we don't get any of the backstory of Joe. Mooney does lock him in the cage, but, because if you didn't know, this is also based on a series of books, because almost every IP is these days, if we were trying to make film stuff. Anyway, he's like, you know, I didn't have that modeled. And anyway, they have Natalie, who's dead, but obviously they pretend to be Natalie from her phone. They text her sister to say that she's unhappy and she's booking a cabin, right? But they're going to put her body somewhere else. They're going to bury her in the woods. And she's just like wearing her clothes odd. Like, it's not going good. And Joe's really mad because he's like, listen, I was going to put this behind me. Like, I was changing for you, changing for our son also. And, Love's also paranoid too, because now her mom, who's usually her bailout, can't help with the lease. So she's stuck with the 3-year lease bakery. She basically has to make it, which is very relatable to me right now. In my own apartment lease, but I just have to make it till October, which is very debatable at this current time. But anyway, so then Love, and this is the part of the season I did not like very much, because it toes a very line, right? Toes a line. And I don't know how I feel about it. But anyway, I mean, I know a little bit. She meets this college student who's incidentally named Theo. My name is Thea, so we love that. Sorry, my cat is walking on my bed and is making my tripod go woo. But anyway, Theo takes a beer as a tax credit and wants to basically steal Love from her husband. And Love's a little amused by this, right? I think she's flattered that a younger kid is hitting on her. I don't know if this has happened to Love before. And low-key, I get it. I'm dating a 23-year-old. I was dating a couple 23-year-olds. It does make you feel makes you feel a little some sort of way when you don't kind of feel that way, right? It's not ideal, right? Anyway. So, Joe is like, you know what? Like, you're telling me that I shouldn't F pretty much the boring neighbor. That's not fair. Which is, you know, I didn't think Natalie was boring, but really oof insult. But anyway, they have to go to this party because they don't want the neighborhood to suspect that something is happening. Thank you so much, Ruben. They don't want the neighborhood to believe that, you know, something weird is going on with them. And Joe starts now falling for this girl at the library who's illustrating, even though he steals a book from her. I'm blanking on her name. Marianne, I think, or Miriam, something like that. Anyway, they go to this rich kid's party, which sounds, I guess, more fun than it happens to be to them. And they thought they would be late, but they're early. And he's trying to decide, like, how drunk he wants to be because he has, you know, now they have a secret, so they can't get super drunk. Least it spill. Least the stress come out. It would be very stressful to be a serial killer, is all I'm picking up from all of this. Anyway, they're looking for reasons to lie, and they get mad, I think, at Love because she's gonna spike their kids' blood sugar by, like, the cupcakes that they had, because they're all, like, sugar-free or whatever. Which is insane. I'm sorry. I mean, probably better for the kids if they don't grow up on sugar as long as it's not going to cause them to, like, crash out and crave sugar when they're older. But, like, you know, like, somebody brought a gift. Your kids ate sugar one time. It's not the meltdown freak out that Sherry has, okay? But anyway, she's like, even like, she's like, no, they're sugar free. Like, but Sherry's like, there's sugar in raspberries. Like, imagine, like, your kid can't have fruit? Like, what? I would die as that kid. I would not be well. I would not function. I need to have a fruit. I'm a fruity little gal, okay? Yes, I am lesbian. Anyway, so Sherry gets all mad at Love for ruining kids. And so much for flying under the radar, right? Sucks for them. Sorry, I compulsively, every time I see somebody that says say hi, I have to click the hi button. But anyway, so Love's so sad. She made this beautiful raspberry and lemon cake, blew up in her face, right? She killed somebody. It's not going great. And then they realized that everybody has these, like, location tech rings from her husband, Natalie's husband. And they're like, dang it, we buried her with a location tech ring. So, I was also thinking about the fact, too, they're covering up this body together. And Henry's earliest memories, right, are going to be, like, his parents covering up a murder. Like, I think if You does a spinoff, I would be really interested to see it from Henry's perspective. I'd be really interested to see it from Henry's life. Does he become like Joe? Does he not? Very interested. That's my spinoff You pitch. But anyway, developmentally, Henry doesn't have depth perception. Me either, really. And so he won't see that they buried it, really, because he's still a baby. Anyway, they have to remove Natalie's teeth. You know? They have to move the body in the rain. If this is proof for you guys to not murder, if you are murdering, you know, maybe stop. Like, I feel like this is a really good, maybe don't do it. Anyway, Love calls Joe out because she's like, you always act like the reason you kill is so noble, but when I do it, I'm crazy. Which is like it's a roundabout way of saying the same thing that we struggle with men and women, right? It's like, when men do a thing, it's justified. When women do something, why are you so crazy, girl? You know what I mean? Why'd you behave this way? Like, it was just sad. It's just sad. Anyway, Love knows, too, that the only reason that she's alive, the only reason Joe didn't kill her, is because of the baby. Which, like, that's sad to know that about somebody you love. You know what I mean? Anyway, they unfortunately can't trust each other. So, they bury the body, and Joe kind of realizes that he's been kind of like 70% in love with Love, not 100%. And he debates killing her again, because he just is so frustrated with her, right? I really honestly wonder how many husbands fantasize about killing their wives. And vice versa, I guess. Anyway, he realizes that 70% is not enough to kill her. It has to be like 100%. But they both 50% want to kill each other. And their couples therapist says that that's normal, which is like, okay. I hope I'm not in a marriage like that. May that love never find me, where there's murder even on the table. Anyway, they're kind of fighting for their lives, which makes this all scarier. And the therapist, you know, having no idea, says, well, you guys are not killers, you know. They are. They are killers, which is very fun about this. And Joe kind of realizes that he's scared to look at, like, who he is in the mirror. He is scared to self-reflect. And he feels very protective. And he wants to fight to protect his family. And Love wants to get money because she's a fear of abandonment. She feels like that's another reason why she's only likable, but she's really afraid of him leaving her. So then they have some sex from the trust that they gained in their therapist, and it's great. And they kind of found their own little bunnies you know, bunny energy, wink, wink, and they're falling in love again. And they like he would kill for her, right? And she would kill for him and Henry, and they're going to do everything they can do, but they really shouldn't kill. Like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe we just don't do that, right? Maybe we just don't do it. Anyway, we find out that both of them know hide keys, but they both agree that they're building a future for their son. Anyway, Love goes and finds Theo next door. That's the stepson of Natalie, who flirted with her. And she was coming over, I think, to, like, give him some cupcakes or whatever. But the cops are there, and now they know. So they kind of come up and they're like, oh, well, you know, we weren't really close, but we're, like, neighbors, you know. So that's that. You know, they're giving their kind of story to the cops to throw them off the trail. And now everybody's all messed up. Natalie's, like, 32. She disappeared in the safest neighborhood. And they talk about how, you know, Joe had killed that celebrity comedian who was Chris D'Elia. And it's really crazy that Chris D'Elia had the same real-life plotline. Who knew in the writer's room? I need to know. Anyway, and Love kind of calls him out that's like, you didn't think about, like, Ellie's family. Like, you didn't think about fixing any of that. And Joe realizes that, like, he made a mistake not telling Love that he went over there. But they decide that the best course of action, like any murder, is to frame the husband. And Love finally uses this neighborhood strategy to bond with the neighbors. They finally taste her cupcakes, and they like it. And they are, you know, doing basically non-existent community service, like very phoned in. And she's trying to get, you know, her kid into the right school. You know, she's trying to set up Henry's future. So Sherry gets a little mad. Sherry's also black, in case you didn't know. Sherry gets a little mad because she's like, of course, if an upper-class white lady goes missing, you get a ton of coverage, but there's none for anybody else who's missing. So they're all trying to rescue Natalie. Others can fend for herself. And Sherry, to the press, acts like, oh yeah, Natalie was my friend, even though, like, Sherry hated her. Natalie hated Sherry. Like, people are fake and will do anything for attention. And probably maybe she wants to say that to the news because maybe I could see, like, knowing how self-involved Sherry is that she just wants to, like, you know, in case somebody's like, didn't you hate Sherry? It wasn't you. Throw him off the set. But anyway, they find photos of him in the parking lot, and there were, like, condoms. And Joe admits that he, like, jacked off in the car, right? And the detectives are like, what? Like, why? Hello? Like, why would you do that with a baby? Like, and Joe was a pervert. We know. He was, like, outside Beck's window multiple times, yanking it. You know what I mean? But anyway, I already figured out from, like, instant chemistry that Love is going to have an affair with Theo, which makes me feel really, I don't know about it. Because she's older than him. He's college. I don't know. He is of age, but it is that line. You know that line. And she's a son. Anyway, they do this kind of whole, like, who gets the cookie, and he says, like, looks great, and they talk about, like, making kind of ironic TikToks, and then Henry ends up, unfortunately, having the measles, so he's letting Theo have a turn. They're going to plant evidence in the neighbor's house next door, and they're really nervous because the measles and babies can do seizures, hearing loss, there's a lot of risk, and Sherry offered to handle all the calls coming in for Natalie, but Love wants to do it, which I think is smart because she can field and get the information, right? Her mother then deals another blow, as if this was all not stressful enough. The mother is like, oh yeah, we did have money. However, I invested it in a vineyard, and Love's so mad. She's mad too because she finds out that Joe is stupid enough to have kept a scarf with blood on it But he's going to go plant that in the neighbor's house, right? Trying to frame the husband. But anyway, it would have all worked out. Except Joe, unfortunately, as he was not vaccinated, as he was not cared for, as he was neglected as a child, has the measles. So, imagine trying to do something really important when you have the measles, right? It's not going, no. It's not going good. Anyway, he ends up seeing himself, who says, go to your house next door. And he realizes that his mom had lied about getting those vaccinations. He flashbacks to, when he was with the nurse in the hospital. And then he sees himself choking himself with this weird self-hatred because he's just, Joe too, like, the minute Joe gets sick or, like, hit on the head, any of that, he loses himself. Anyway, so Theo's dad, Natalie's husband, they ask, like, what are you doing in the backyard? And they get a little bit mad at, like, Joe with the measles. They're like, are you an anti-vaxxer? Because that was very big at the time. You guys remember that? And then, meanwhile, Theo is buying Love Tacos. I don't know what it means. When they buy you a taco, it's the real one. Thank you so much for the follow. Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys. I have board. I can't put my board up, huh? It's okay. I'm so behind in sending gifts. It's good. I think. I'll pin my subscriber, but we'll do something for this live. Anyway, so Joe comes in and is like, okay, yes, I kissed Natalie. Apparently, I missed that. I don't know how I missed that when I first watched this, but I missed the kiss. But he did kiss her. But he still claims he didn't cheat, which is like, Joe. You know what I mean? Honey. You were jerking off in the parking lot. You know what I mean? Like, honey. Anyway, he doesn't really know what he's doing, and he just feels like at a primal level, like, the library needs him. He needs to learn, and he wants to, like, know more about books and articles. And the one librarian, Miriam, is like, I think Natalie will come back and is just doing this all for attention, which is interesting. And the whole thing that they kind of say is like, hey, you got to tell your own story, or they'll tell it for you in the press, which is what, or the husband believes that too. That, he's got to tell his own story because the press is just going to tell it for him. The husband wants to know what Joe's doing there, but clearly he's ill. And he's just kind of taking it. He's like, clearly this guy's, like, having a day for whatever reason. Like, Joe's literally, like, passed out by the trash. And Matthew has enough sense to be like, all right, so something neurological is going on, And I think that he's a pretty decent man, and it kind of sucks that they're going to frame him, right? And Joe feels really bad about that, too. He's like, what kind of people would we be? Like, I think we're better than that to frame, like, an innocent man. So he burns the scarf with the blood, and I'm like, my first thing is, like, wouldn't a fire in the sink like that immediately set off the smoke alarms? Did he turn them off beforehand? Like, how good does he have this? Anyway, they have this huge vigil of people all taking pictures during it, selfieing during this vigil. And the husband comes out and he just says that he's sorry, he doesn't want to talk. And Joe is super busy. And he apologizes for not, and another guy apologizes that he was an anti-vaxxer and that he spread the measles, and that, like, he's sorry he didn't get his young girls vaccinated, which is kind of crazy. Like, I don't know if you should have to justify, like, I feel like, unfortunately, being human is getting sick. I don't know if you should have to justify that, but I also don't know that vaccines cause autism. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I was vaccinated and I'm pretty autistic, so who's to say? Anyway, I think my trauma caused autism, to be quite frank. But anyway, so the one wife of the guy who didn't get activated, she's very shocked. And she's like, I'm sorry, like, You shouldn't just, like, come to apologize at your bakery and, like, get everybody sick, you know? And Love gets so mad that he hurt Henry and gave him the measles that she goes to kill him. And the wife knocks him out, and she builds the cage, and she's like, you know, and he tries to argue, like, well, it's kind of beneficial for your son, like, he gained immunity. And she's like, yeah, at great risk. So she's stuffing him in the basement. I love how protective Mother Bear she is, like, at the most extreme level. Clearly her hormones, you know what I mean? Anyway, she said that Joe is getting fixated. You know, there's another girl who got a breast augmentation and was doing Adderall at the library. Wildlife, cannot relate to her, but would love to, I guess, to be on that same. And so Love goes to talk to Theo because she's clearly going through a lot. And they're trying to find a state park, but she doesn't want to join the squad after, you know, like, the fact that Theo was, like, shouting at his dad or whatever. And Theo is, like, pretty sure, he's like, I'm pretty sure my dad killed her. But they agree to be search buddies, okay? Naughty. So, Joe opens up to Miriam Barbarian about his past and how, you know, he's not just some rich dude around here. He used to be in a cage, okay? He used to have to work for free, and she misjudged him. And she tries to be like, you know, she talks about how her parents had, like, gambled and lost money, and that she had suffered with, like, drugs and everything. That there's a lot of selfish people, and she knew that they were selfish, but she let them sleep with her anyway, which I really related to. Anyway, Love wants to kill the people who were anti-vaxxers, and Joe's like, no, we're not doing that. We've already killed enough. Like, no. And they hire a lawyer to, like, go look into more people. And Joe's really nervous because he's like, what my kid is going to see, like, look at what happened to me. Like, what a kid sees growing up is, like, going to stick to them for life. It's going to mess them up, right? And then the only news that they could find is that there is another son that got into Dartmouth for $50K with no fun, but had beat up this Vicky cheerleader who was not underprivileged. And that is what the husband kind of thinks, like, what happened to the wife. Like, did his first son kill her, right? Because he doesn't really know why else his wife would do that. And they realized that, I think his name is Alan, that they did something to pay that victim off. And it turns out that he was, unfortunately, SAing. Sorry, I get really sad about this stuff. And they try to convince him to, like, move, to not go to that college. And he ends up hanging himself, unfortunately, because he thought he ruined the family for that. And so they make an appearance, you know, for all of us. And then they find out that he's, like, he cannot send Ellie some money because he gets caught stealing a book. And the one librarian gets really, really mad about that. And we find out that the husband of Sherry takes pharmaceutical Molly to just get it up. And Theo attacks Sherry for trying to sell these books. And, you know, then they kind of, like, calm down because they're like, you know what, you're having, like, a hard day. Like, your stepmom's missing and your whole everything is not so good. You know what I mean? And I don't really mean it. And then Love kind of opens up to Theo about 40. And they kind of connect that they're both human beings with sensitive hearts. And they all realize, and they keep talking to, like, the one husband. And he's like, yeah, you know, like, publicity is going to flatten you into types of, like, who you are. And then they find an axe, and they find that they wrote a letter to the wife who's saying, like, killed Natalie. And because Natalie had an affair and was planning to leave him hanging to find, which is just a whole yeesh, like a knot. Oof, it's rough. And they text the son, axe emoji, sad face, and they tell it to Theo, who finds it, and then it's on the news, which is wild. Just like, the axe emoji really took me out, I gotta say. Sometimes this show is like so darkly funny for no reason, and it's like, you did not have to go there, and I love that you did, like, so much. Sorry, I'm making sure I didn't miss any other of the notes. And also, Love's Bakery is called a fresh tart, which I think is really, really funny. And Dylan Arnold, who plays Theo in this, is actually only 1 year older than Victoria Pedretti, who I'm really in love with. All right, let's go. Sorry, my iPod is being so bizarro with this. Like, it's not giving, friends. We're just gonna have to take a pause, but you know what? It's okay, because there's really no rush in life. There's really just no rush. Although my viewership is so bad today, which is crazy, but I guess maybe everybody's very busy on a Friday. How's everybody's Friday going, by the way? How's it all going? Let me know. I'm trying to see what I was. Why is my iPad being like this? It's so weird. There we go. All right, we'll keep going. Anyway, so Shin's getting flowers from Sherry. Joe is starting to develop the crush on Marion, obviously, because of course he is. And also, they are kind of kindred spirits. It is kind of very, like, she's very New York in this, you know, SoCal mess. And Love is starting to smoke. And, you know, Joe kind of realizes that he is aging and growing up because he's no longer, like, you know, yanking it in the shower or any of that. And he realizes that, you know, like, not having any friends, he's starting to feel a lot of pressure from his partner. And Theo ends up going to kiss Love, and even though she says no, Joe gets a makeover that looks just honestly horrible. And we find out that, you know, Theo was arrested in high school because for driving while under the influence. He was going to cook meth, but he was scared of getting ended up dead, and he got kicked out of school for showing up to a test drunk. And then they want to go take on a hunting trip. Like, for me, I'm like, you don't take Joe or Love on a hunting trip because they are killers. But they're like, no, let's hunt and release impulses. And they start to see, too, that there's Uber charges to Palo Alto. And, you know, Joe is seeing her with Theo and getting him an Uber when she's drunk. And then we have another guy that's really just upset about being, like, another parent that's, like, mad about being a stay-at-home dad, school teacher. And they kind of do this whole thing of, like, check out to check in, right? That's, like, Sherry's old thing. And only eating food that they can, like, hunt to eat. They're gonna, like, end up, you know, axing themselves, unaliving themselves. But Joe hasn't eaten all day. The people in the cage haven't eaten all day. And they realize that none of this is about being a man. It's about being a kid again. And we see all these boys taking their shirts off during this hunting one, which is, it's very gay. I see why the guys, you know, the guys like this. I'm getting it now. And we see Sherry's husband kill a squirrel. And Joe wouldn't do it, which is very interesting, right? Because we've seen Joe kill much bigger things than a squirrel, right? And so he tries to make Joe fight him. And then he accidentally gets pushed off a cliff, and it's like, why are we fighting and hunting in the dark? And they says that he fell and there's no phones, and they're worried that they're like, they don't know if he's dead or not, which is like my worst nightmare, right? Like, imagine that you just are like messing around with somebody and like something serious happens. Like, no, thank you. Like, then you can't, every time you mess around, you're going to be traumatized, and that doesn't seem fun at all. Doesn't seem fun at all, friends. I don't know why this is being so weird. I don't want to do this one. This one website is really We might just have to go on without it and do our best. But yeah, I'm trying to keep us up too. But anyway, I cannot deal with all this. But anyway, they don't know if this one guy's dead that they got off the thing. Sorry, my cats are being very inspired by the show. They try to revive him. He's alive. And he's like, it's impossible to kill me. And he like snaps his bone back, which is crazy. And he's like, I'm a fine man specimen. And he cries, but he like fits in now. And then they find out that Theo was arrested for drunk driving on a scooter. And he's flunking out because he can't stop thinking about love, which I understand. And anyway, a teenager after a married woman, I'm like, what is the end game for that? But Love ends up kissing him, you know. I'm like, what is going to happen? Because he's like so young. Like, there's no way he's not going to get married. Like, it's only going to end, right? There's no way. I feel so uncomfortable about this whole affair with them. I don't love it, to be honest. I don't love it. Not my favorite. Especially if she's a mom. Like, I don't know. It's a little creepy. A little creepy. But come after me for dating a 23-year-old and I'll be like, hey. But I think he's like 18, you guys. Like, it's weird. It's weird. Especially for me, I kind of feel like Love is very loyal that she wouldn't cheat. Yes, meow. I'm wearing the shirt because my one cat that it looks like is a psychopath. Just like Joe Goldberg. Anyway, then Theo and Love, they do the do. They have the FCX. And her mom catches her, Love, and she calls her out on her BS and is like, you're missing Henry's first steps. And you could have seen it if you would FaceTime, picked up the FaceTime. And then she's all mad because it's like, when is it Joe's problem? Like, why can't he see that? And Joe's like, yeah, I've got to fix myself. I got to fix my son. I'm distracted. I'm missing my son grow up. Like, your mom is right. Your mom is right. I don't know what the heck that was. Maybe it was my cat. Maybe you see my cat's tail. My evil psychopath cat. Come show them who you are. Dude, that you match the thing. Stop, I going to murder everyone? No, you're not, Mercy. Well, I could try. I guess you could try. I don't think you'll get very far, but I might. I don't know. Doing from the Brita. Yeah, she's very floofy. She's as floofy as she is evil. So, that's that. That's that, friends. Anyway. They realize that wine is a healthier addiction than a teen boy, right? I can agree to that, I guess, but it's not the great. And then they have his and her crossbows at the other family, which is bad. And poor Theo wants this, like, unconditional love, which is really poor boy. And then he sees Theo getting a BJ outdoors by Love. She's being wild. She's really hormonal. So he starts watching Miriam the Barbarian, right? Joe's like, all right, whatever. He's going to stalk the girl. He stalks her to the point where he's under her bed at one point, like Joe. And Love is really weird, you know, just absolutely losing it. I mean, she's also in grieving too, right? There's a lot emotionally going on for Love. She texts 40. She has been her phone texting her dead brother. And she fears that she's going to be pregnant. And Theo comes out about her dad and is, like, still hitting on her. And that, you know, there was another son that had like killed somebody older for going after her brother. She kind of explains too that, you know, she had, you know, the secret that basically like she went, which is, it is very interesting, right? So she goes for this younger person, but her first ever kill was the au pair that took advantage of 40, right? Who was also an older woman taking advantage of a younger boy. So a really interesting dichotomy is playing out here in the season, right? About hypocriticalness, and clearly she's grieving because you crash out hard. You do everything that you wouldn't do grieving a life. Anyway. Theo's still interested in her, even when he knows that about her. And then Joe, meanwhile, is having his Marion librarian fantasy. She has Theo. Love has Theo who's eating cupcakes. And Again, I'm so not into this. She's giving very desperate housewife, you know? Anyway, they hired a private investigator. And it's this, her mom, or his company. And Sherry is also like, I'm going to help because I have so many followers and I bet you can find it. And then meanwhile, the mom's at a vineyard. And they are trying to find, still find Natalie. But Joe kind of sees this red flag about Miriam because she has a domestic abuse restraining order and she has a kid. Thank you so much, Alicia. And then Joe and Love are kind of asked this question by their therapist of like, is it possible that you don't want to succeed, that you sabotage, right, your own success? Which, to a degree, I think is definitely true with both of them. Like, or that essentially monetary success is not fulfillment enough for the people that Joe and Love are. Anyway, I realized that they kind of have a narcissistic view of success and then they all kind of suddenly feel deserving. And Sherry kind of all points this out to Love too because she's got a whole kind of like hashtag and she's like, my followers need to see other women supporting women. And so Love is finally accepted. She can sit with them. And then Love helps interview Sherry. And she's done with her mom from her outburst. And they show like they nearly match each other's own grip. They're kind of bonding. And she kind of outs herself about her baby, that she doesn't know for sure if she's pregnant, that she hasn't told Joe. She's scared about his reaction. And they're watching the Channel 3 News with Marion, who has like pushed up and gets mad about the help that he's offering. And then you have, on Sherry's Live, they're talking about 40, who feels like he's answering inside, like he's still alive inside of Love in that way. That he like still lives inside her because they were like twins too. They were like very, very, very close. And Love gets really drunk with Sherry and sees 40 in a naked tub, and it's so weird. An activity in my life. I'm literally yapping the heck out of it. Anyway, so Love is getting drunk. She sees 40 in the hot tub. They naked hug, right? They're siblings. It's still a little weird. There's a lot of like, I'm telling you, the season was like crossing a lot of lines. It's kind of right back from COVID. Anyway, then unfortunately, she like thinks she's having a baby and then she's drunk. But anyway, she is bleeding, unfortunately. She has her period. And she's sad that she wants to have another baby, but she has to focus on her because she's clearly not well right now. And 40 says that her one, like, she has one soulmate and she's sabotaging it all. And Joe realizes that, both Love and Miriam have mommy issues. And Miriam and Joe bond over their own shared mommy issues. I can relate because I too have mommy issues. And Miriam is like, yeah, we were both addicts. I went through a red light. There's a lot of wreckedness. And when I was driving, I wrecked. And my, basically, baby daddy got the full custody because he was a beloved local celeb white man, and of course they believed him over like the black girl that was on drugs. And she was like, I was clean before, I got clean before him, but that is what happened. And so she got arrested for verbal and emotional abuse because he built a case that he had worked on for years, and they took his word over hers. And I really felt for Miriam. Like, she honestly has a really sad story. and she didn't deserve any of this, and it really sucks that she got tangled up with Joe. It really, really does, because she built herself so much from where she was just to get dragged back down in, like, one of the worst ways you could. One of the very worst ways you could. But anyway, Joe was like, no, I shouldn't reduce this. Abraham, I'll answer you real quick. We'll take a little quick break. I'm saying hi to everybody real quickly. Hi. If you're thinking about getting a poly relationship, well, I'd have to know more about it. I think that poly relationships, we're about to be in a scene where they talk about it in You Season 3. I think that poly relationships would be fun. For me, I felt I was getting trapped in certain monogamous relationships, and I was getting into abusive ones. So I needed the break and the chillness of just, like, exploring people and dating and not having, you know, the expectation, even though, like, what I want in my soul heart is to get married. But I know that there are married polyamorous couples that happens. And yeah. Can you join what, Darkspell? Meanwhile, I'm talking about You Season 3, so I don't know if I want a guest on this live, but feel free to give me a follow and you can come be a guest on my other live. But if you met about the poly one, I'm not currently in a polyamorous relationship. I don't know. Probably not this live, if that's okay. Sorry, I'm just feeling kind of a little antisocial, but I hope that helped you, Abraham. Be a 3-person loyal relationship with 2 people and explore others. I think it really depends on what you want. In my ideal, somebody's comments got filtered too, so just try to say it in a different way. Sorry, TikTok got you. In my ideal, it's a girl-boy relationship because I'm pan, and that's my ideal, and we are loyal to each other, and we all love each other, and somehow it works. I mean, somehow there's enough space on the bed, and we're not sad about roller coasters. That's that. But most poly ones that I've seen are 2 others dating other people, because I think it's really hard to find that, like, true third that gets along with both of you. But that's just what I've seen from my friends' experiences and my own minor ones. Anyway, back to you. Yeah, I think if you want to try it, try it. I don't think there's any shame in exploring. Because better to do it than be married and in a monogamous relationship where you can't explore it and you're always wondering and then you're not present in that relationship. And anyway, Joe is then, he wants to make out with Miriam. He's like, no, I shouldn't reduce her to this makeout. But then the sprinkler comes on and she's like, oh no, all these books. But they just make out with it on. And now he's like, oh crap, like, love's gonna kill you now that I cheated with her. And he's like, oh no, like, did I maybe choose my wrong soulmate just to die? But Love's thinking about her own soulmate because Theo's telling Love about pie, as in, like, you know, they're at a bakery, but not the P-I-E, the P-I one. And Joe was gonna quit for the library, but they make it up. And he's like, you know what, maybe we can have a chance if she's focused on Theo, right? And if she's focused on this, and then he's like, you know, we're a really good team. We have a really good kind of love. Don't worry about it. And then Love strips on purpose in front of Theo. Naughty Love. And then Joe is a bit worried, but that Mirren hasn't texted back, but he sees that she's alive, so it's fine. And then Sherry wants Love to cater. And they're like, yeah, sometimes we have sex parties because we get bored of each other. And then they see that their daughter broke their glasses because she was playing idly. And, you know, they're like, yeah, family we're destined for, but we like to have a little bit of fun. And Miriam opens up about her ex-husband, Ryan, would, like, use married men, and she never got custody, and that he sometimes, like, gives money to the library too. And then meanwhile, they're breaking the molars of the mouth to get oxy with pliers. It's just very intense, very gross. Didn't look too much at that one. And they're training for, Love's mom is training for the A-hole Olympics, and they have like a maid. Mom is getting mad that, you know, like she feels like Love and Joe are not present, that they're just being all a-holes because she's becoming their maid, their chef, and their nanny for all of it. And Joe is going to try to get Theo, I think, hooked, and the dad all hooked on Adderall again. And then it turns out that Love's dad took the mom's vineyard, and their next door neighbor wants to start working with like facial recognition and all of that. And Miriam's nervous because there's an Adderall and Oxycontin relapse, and Joe starts messing with Miriam's ex routine because he's trying to like save Miriam, right, and get her kid back. And Love, you know, feels guilty and also doesn't want Joe to kill Theo, right, because they're both serial killers and they're both, you know, at each other's throats. So Love blows him, but unfortunately Joe has nothing left because he was jacking off to Miriam. And so Joe makes it up by getting her donuts and a pot that she wanted. And then Miriam and Love talk. And they have another neighborhood who's always doing like AA stuff. And he's like all talking about how like his tolerance is now through the roof. And Ryan, Miriam's ex, knows like he's been in A&A, and he knows that like what the story he's talking about is about Miriam. And this one Alice's look it's so good. And then Sherry opens up about how she's like a hot wife and like women in open relationships and polyamorous, and that her husband and her can't stop thinking about the two of Joe and Love. And Love's mom took the baby and meanwhile lit the vineyard on fire on top of it. Get ready, there's going to be a lot of vineyard fire in this season. And the ex tries to send Miriam to rehab because she's like, you neglected your children, and you let your husband. And Joe kind of likes that she's broken because it kind of gives him a purpose, right? And he gets a new purpose from her. And now that Joe's thinking about it, he's like, maybe Henry having no mother would be better. And Love thinks the same thing about her mom, but her mom is like, I know that you killed your first husband, that he didn't die of what you think that he did, which is like shocking, right? Totally changes Love's whole story. As you know, Love's husband too was deaf too, so it's a brutal murder from like another person in the disability community, like unfair. And anyway, Miriam is like, listen, Joe, like I can't do this. I have to live with integrity. I can't be a homewrecker. And then Joe's like, no, we're in an open relationship. You're not. Like, we're not. We're in an open one. And they are not really, because Love ends up chickening out of swinging. Joe, meanwhile, is like submitting Miriam's artwork. And Sherry and her husband make them all sign an NDA, which is so funny to me about that, so that they can't talk about their open. I mean, it's genius, but it's hilarious to sign an NDA to not do that. And so Joe is like being kind of a character witness, and Joe is very good with girl on girl. Okay, he liked that part, and he's like, I'm fine with Love and Carrie. It's I trust you. And Carrie is very bi. He really optimizes the man, right? And Joe is like, Joe saying no to Sherry is a big oof. They were like moving too fast, and Love was like pretending that it's fine, but Joe notices that like she's watching Theo and Love with like the football, and Joe, you know, eats her out just to kind of hide and please her. And then Joe's like, okay, it's fine. Like Love's like, okay, it's fine. We're solid. Like, let's just text Sherry about it all. And then Theo's dad knows about Love and his affair, and so he goes after him and is like, no, you know what I mean? We're not going to do that. And he sees like the domestic abuse on camera, and, you know, Theo's like, none of this is going to bring Natalie back. And he's like, I'm done. I'm going to go back to mom, so I'm not going to grab this. But anyway, they made oysters, which is an aphrodisiac, and Sherry is like, a vocal scream is really funny with the shake it out, and they're like looking in the eyes. And then Love and Sherry and Carrie, they're like showing all this setup, and they talk about like taking testosterone, and they like hug Carrie naked. It's such a weird scene. I was laughing through all this, so my notes are wild. So Carrie ends up masturbating to himself in the mirror, and then they join in, and Marion's ex, Ryan, is like weaponizing these sort of photos to the editor. And, you know, she wants Joe to come over, and he like wishes that he could. He doesn't want any of this, you know, and Joe realizes is that, you know, he's just too tense about Sherry, and she's worried that Miriam is going to be killed by Love, and he's like, I should just kill that dude Ryan. Like, I can kill him, I can do it, and I could save all of Miriam's problems, so I'm going to do it. And Love has this kind of like one-sided confession about killing Natalie, because of all the yelling and everything. And then Sherry is like, all right, let's get on the bed. And then they say go, and Carrie starts running, but Carrie starts to chokehold Joe, but then he stabs him with a glass and then junks Joe's head in ice water, because they learn about that, like, they are the murderers basically. And then he ends up stabbing him with a cheese fork, which is crazy. And then he symbols out, they get a crossbow, and they get impaled. And then Love imprisons them, and Harry's in there, and she's like so worried about going to jail, because she's like, then Harry's gonna be in the system, Love's gonna be in prison, like this is all not good. So they throw a rock to Carrie. They're all nervous about cameras, but they both succeed. And so the door opens for Love, and they have this like serial killer sex, which is the best sex that they ever had, because their unfortunate love language is violence, which is crazy. Unfortunately, the neighbors saw Conrad and heard the scream, and they think that it's weird that the neighbors are doing at 5 a.m., even though Love tries to pass it off like, oh, that's just a routine that they have to do. And then meanwhile, Miriam and Ryan, they do a custody hearing, but the judge and Ryan's friends have the system unfortunately rigged. So they're like, just blame it on that. You know, it's better than waking up not dead. And now Love is more into Joe than ever. And Matthew thinks that he sees Natalie driving up after Love, and they keep having these nightmares. Like, Love's kind of tweaking out with all of everything that's going on, all the stress that she's under, and she sees Henry's pacifier in the blood, right? And she's like, oh no. So she keeps the drugs, but she's throwing away all these sex toys, and she finds a gun. And then we have Dante watching Henry, which are these like gay neighbors, so that Joe can go to Miriam, who is kind of starting to crash out on alcohol due to the sad court rulings, right? And Sherry's like, listen, like, let's not jeopardize Harry's future. Like, let us out. You know what I mean? We could write you a letter. And Theo talks about like how he has a video of Joe. He's going to frame Joe because obviously he wants Love. And Ryan is taking Miriam's daughter away to New Jersey, and he confesses that, you know, that's his plan, and there's really nothing she can do about it. And then Joe is like, listen, we killed the guy that hurt my mom. I've done it before. And he tells it to Theo, and he's like, I'm leaving Love, and I'm looking up with Marianne, so you can have whatever. And then they're using Sherry's phone and faking that she's having like placenta tea or whatever, which is crazy. And they're all nervous that Matthew is watching us, and they confess that Theo wants to run away. And Sherry's like, oh, that's so hot for you, Love, which is so gross. And Miriam's like, well, I need to go to New Jersey. If that's where my kid's going to be, I'm going to be there. And then Matthew ends up erasing some of the tapes that have all of Joe and Love's like kind of, you know, incriminating evidence about it, because his boss says that Theo made a copy, so they have that one. And Love makes Sherry and Carrie, which is just crazy that that's their names. Anyway, they're like, you can shoot a way out of Love, and they're like, they gave a gun, and they're like, why don't you guys kill each other? So that's what you guys can do, since we're like holding you kidnapped. So Joe, meanwhile, is going to kill Ryan, but Ryan sees that he's being followed, and he has the knives, and he's like, I'm going to call the cops. I'm going to tell them about the drugs that you guys are doing. And, you know, Miriam's lucky that I didn't kill her, and he just like beats the nose in. He pushes him out of the garage. He's reaching for a phone. He grabs it. He sees all these security
cameras, but he just stabs him a bunch of times by the yoga scooter anyway. Like, he feels like he is just rescuing. And then Theo sees Joe in Natalie's car, and he goes to the bakery because now he's like suspicious. Like, it's like probably Joe killed him, right? And then Carrie ends up shooting Sherry's ear, and Carrie gets the gun, and Theo burst ins on them, and they're begging Theo to like let them out. And Theo's like, what the heck, right? Like, imagine being 18 and stumbling upon that, right? No, what? And Joe doesn't feel sorry at all about Ryan. He feels actually very justified. Theo ends up finding the key. Dante, the gay guy, has the baby. And then Love is like, tells Theo to leave and never come back. And then she hits him with a fire extinguisher, and he falls from the stairs, which is so awful. And she's so sad because she just wants another baby, and it's now not going to be Theo's. And then Sherry shoots Carrie in the leg. You have the police interrogating Miriam, and she's nervous that, you know, they think that she killed him because, and I feel so bad, like she's gonna get messed up because of stupid Joe's action, because he's not thinking, because he's a white boy, right? But she's black, so the police are thinking that she killed her husband in the custody battle. Like, good going, Joe. Good going, Joe. Really nice one with that one. And Theo is still alive even after that big fire extinguisher head thing. Joe learns that she was having sex with him. He's not pleased, right? He's not happy. It's not a good day for him. He drops off Theo at the hospital, and he decides he's just gonna run away with Miriam. It doesn't matter. But Love realizes that Joe is also cheating, and she's like, no. So she picked up Henry, and they both know that each other are cheating, and Joe's like, okay, I want a divorce. And Love admits that, like, yes, I did kill my husband, James, and I didn't mean to. I just lose it sometimes. Like, I just get really emotional. I meant to paralyze him, and just temporary. And she's like, but now I'm going to do the same to you because you shouldn't have cheated on me. Like, you're messed up for that. And you started it. And nothing seemed to be happening to Joe at first. And he's trying to grab a weapon, but he says nothing happening. And Love is like, she tells Miriam to come over, and she's going to deliver cupcakes to her and probably kill her as well, which is not good. And Matthew comes in, but he can't talk, but he's really pissed because he knows about the wife, and he's like, he thinks that, that they killed her, and he believes that Joe deserves it, and he just leaves him there. And Carrie, they're going on a live, even through the glass versions, and Sherry is like, I hate that I have to, like, kill you to survive, and I don't want to do it. But Miriam comes in, even though she, like, wasn't going to, and Joe is like, I lied to you about separating. And Miriam's like, wow, I just shouldn't have been convinced. Like, toxic men always see an easy mark. And Love is like, just so you know, too, Joe killed your ex. And, he's the one lying about us separating. He was a toxic man. He saw you as an easy mark. And so Love lets her daughter use the restroom. And she's like, you should run because he's going to be obsessed with you. And she's like, it's not that simple. And Miriam is like, you know what? If you were a true partner, you would turn yourself in. Like, you would be really, really honest about yourself. And you would, find your own voice in yourself and just, do better. Like, go find your true partner, Miriam. You can do better than Joe. Believe in yourself. And Love let them go, which I thought was very good of Love, right? She's getting better. She is progressing, which is very, very sad. But it's all room now. But an insanity of all of this to just drive to and tell all that and, like, give her the heads up. And also, plan to kill your husband, right? Anyway, she's feeling good in her single mother look. She's good and mobile. She's going to kill Joe. She grew wolfsbane. She had the adrenaline that he took, and, like, he ends up drugging her, and he's like, well, no, Love, you did it to yourself. You did it to yourself, right? You wanted to. And she's like, wow, we really are perfect for each other. And he's like, yeah, but we're going to mess up Henry, and that's not worth it. So Sherry and Carrie end up getting out because they know the key is in there. And Joe asks, Love's mom what's wrong, and she sees that the mom is like trying to take care of somebody else and the mom is like starting over. Same with Miriam. So he kind of realizes that, and he realizes that, you know, he has to leave Henry behind, and he feels so sorry about it. This is why I think they made it a boy, because I think if it was a girl, Joe would have done anything and kept it. But they have to leave Henry behind, and he's like so sorry. He's like, it's not forever. And he leaves them with Dante, who really wanted a baby to adopt, and he knows that they'd be good parents and that they just that he needs protecting. And I hate it. It's so heartbreaking. He runs. He had Love write a note. But I think a lot of people know that it's Joe too. Sherry and Carrie end up surviving. Joe cuts off his toes and fakes his own death, which is so messed up. We never see about the fact that he's missing toes. We never talk about that again. He already almost lost a finger. Like, Joe is like at pieces in this point. So messed up. And they find Love's own serial killer box, and he burns the house with the oven lights on, all the photos on fire, and they basically make this kind of Mrs. Lovett sort of thing out of Love Quinn, and she becomes more famous than Gwen Beck, all right? And he's like, you know what? I think we can all begin to heal now that I'm not with this, like, poison, toxic family that is clearly, you know, what I keep repeating, because that's a pattern that I see, you know? Theo ends up being in physical therapy from the blow that Love gave him, which is awful. And Joe really urges Dante to protect Henry as if it was his own. He yields custody to Dottie, and they rename the bakery to Well-Behaved Women Rarely Bake, which is, I think, very funny. But sad. It was very sad to see Love die. I hated it. Honestly, I really loved Love as a character. Anyway, Carrie and Sherry, they make TEDx heroes, and they name their baby Toxie, and they do like a radical couples therapy technique, which is what they learned when they're in there. And Joe vows that he's going to find Miriam, and he couldn't find her anywhere in town, but he hopes to find her again, even though she was running, and he's going to go to Paris to find her. But we get cheated out of that too. They keep changing the endings at the end of the thing. I don't know what that is about. If it's some icky studio head, because obviously he does not go to Paris because it's stupid. Well, he does for a second, but we barely get it. And he goes to stupid London. That next season is so not good, fam. I don't love season 4. Season 5 I really did like, actually. Season 5, after going through domestic abuse, is good. Actually, unfortunately, I do need food to survive. In fact, I really do. But I don't know what you think. Do you think I'm AI? That I don't need it? Yeah, because losing 20 pounds is so easy. Thank you for your advice. I got so good at it. I really have 2 eyes, and one is a dead guy's. You have a fun time bullying people on the internet? Does it make you feel like a man? Does it make you feel so strong? Oh, you're hiding behind a little username? Wow. Literally. Talking about psychopaths. Prime example. I just don't understand. You know what I mean? I don't understand when people are mean on live. Like, you could literally do so much else with your time. Just saying. Well, it's not motivating. You could also just ask. You'd be like, what motivates you? But sure. I love people who never take blame for the shitty things that they do. Also, there's nothing wrong with my size. I be what I be. But, wow. Thank you for the shirt. I know. It looks like my cat. Yeah, because Taco Bell's what I can afford right now, man. Check your privilege. Sorry I have to eat to be alive. I hate it too. I wish I could just die, but not so easy. But anyway, bullies aside, that was you, season 3. Let me know. You actually do have to eat. Anorexia is not really good. And you will die if you don't eat. And you will lose your teeth and your hair. And your skin will get really bad. So you actually do have to eat for nutrients. You haven't eaten in 2 days? Well, that's really sad. That's really, unfortunately, so sad. I hope that you eat. No, it's sad. I know. I have nothing. I'm getting plenty of laid. You know what I mean? There is a whole community of men that like tummies. Why would I change? I can eat what I want. Look the way I want. I'm good. But thank you for that. But yeah, I hope that you really do eat. That's not good. All right, friends. On that chipper note, I think I'm going to say bye-bye because the traffic is not so good. Sure, they're desperate. I don't think so. They're skinny than it. I mean, that's your opinion. You know, some people don't think that. But anyway, I think you're just hungry, unfortunately, and that's making you mean. So hopefully you get something to eat so you can be nicer, because you never know what somebody is dealing with on the outside of your comments. And I hope that you really think about that. Because would it make you feel good? Yeah, you clearly are hangry. I mean, you come have some of these stale tortilla chips. I don't know where you're located, but there's a lot of like options. There's Snap, reach out to churches for food. At this point, not that I would like to encourage stealing, but if you have to eat, if being hangry is making you bullet, yeah, you want to go out for drinks after being mean to me? I don't know about that. I'm pretty poor for drinks, but you have to eat before we go for a drink. That would be my guarantee. But anyway, all right, friends, I'm gonna say goodbye. Don't worry, there will be food. Okay, as long as you're eating, I don't mind, because I don't think it's good to not eat for 2 days. That's just not healthy. We don't do that. We eat every day, hopefully 3 meals. Or at least something. Hopefully at least a healthy proportion of calories. Thanks. All right, friends. We're going to say goodbye for right now. Traffic was mid, but I haven't still figured out the kind of method for reviews yet. But anyway, see you next time. Bye.